Welcome to Therapy Explained, where we explain, demystify, and destigmatize mental health and mental health treatment. My name is Deniss. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and your very own mental health cheerleader. Today, we're going to be talking about the benefits and pitfalls of therapists on social media, of people on social media talking about mental health. Now, over the last 2 years or so, education and information on social media about mental health has exploded. I'm sure that you probably follow more than one therapist, including myself, on some sort of social media platform. I think it's been amazing. There's been so many good things about people having access to this kind of information that, as you have heard me say before, I believe everyone has a right to. You should have information about your mental health, vocabulary about mental health, so that it feels less stigmatizing, less scary, less overwhelming, less intimidating to ask for help or to even manage your own mental health. So by no means am I saying that this is all a bad thing, but today I want to look at some aspects of consuming mental health on social media and some things that you should keep in mind as you're doing so. Generalized information. As I said, getting general information about your mental health is a good thing. Information and education is never bad. So this can be a big benefit of being able to access this on social media. You get a better idea of what anxiety might be or imposter syndrome might be, just in general what your mental health consists of and what are some things that might be able to help you. This is a really good basis. It's important for us to remember that whatever you consume, including information here on this YouTube channel, should be taken as, okay, this is one opinion, this is one version, and this is just one tool to many tools available to me to manage my mental health. It's a good thing if you follow more than one mental health professional on social media, because then you're getting varied information, which again is good. Everyone's been trained differently, and of course, whether or not we like to admit it, every therapist also has their own view and opinion about mental health, and that is what we use to inform our practice. I'll talk a little bit more about how my practice is informed by my personal beliefs and values, like, social justice and equity, and a lot of how the systems affect our mental health. And again, that's how I choose to lead therapy and treat my patients, and how we treat patients at my group practice. But not everybody does that, and it's important for us to take that into consideration as well. Different voices and different opinions are good, but remember that this is general and should be taken again as just a basis, as just a place to start. Self-diagnosing. As I mentioned, diagnoses and terms and vocabulary should be something that you know, should be something that you're aware of, that you've heard of in the past. So if a therapist says, I feel like you might have anxiety, or I would diagnose you with anxiety or depression, that you have a really general idea of what that means. It's good for you to know, it's good for you to understand, and again, for that to serve as a structure, as a basis, as a place to come from when you're learning to manage your mental health, and even communicating that to your therapist and saying, hey, this is what I heard, and I'm curious if this is something that you think I might be diagnosed with. But then in general, again, the purpose of the diagnosis, at least where I'm coming from, which remember is important for you to remember, is that it really just is for us to communicate a list of symptoms. It's what we call a list of symptoms, and that's it. It doesn't define all of who you are. And really, at the end of the day, when we talk treatment, when we talk how can we really manage your mental health in therapy, what's important is managing those symptoms. Now, on the flip side, I know that having a diagnosis and being able to name what is happening for you can also be very empowering, because we don't feel as overwhelmed. There's a name for what's happening for us, and that can be really helpful. So that's good. If that's a part that benefits you, definitely ask, definitely explore that. But remember that it depends. There's other diagnoses that sometimes look the same. Something like trouble concentrating can be a result of ADHD, but sometimes it's also a symptom of anxiety. It can also be if you struggled through trauma or experienced trauma as a child, because your body might still be in survival mode, so it's not concentrating on other things as much as it is trying to keep you alive. One last pitfall here for diagnosis is also that we tend to just, as a society, misuse terms and misuse diagnoses. I don't know if you've probably heard people say, I'm OCD, but obsessive compulsive disorder is a real disorder and it can impair people's lives. And it's not just you like to keep things neat. So that part is also important for us to keep in mind, that we might have a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding for what some of these diagnoses are, and we then might take that on as a label for ourselves, and that's not helpful for us and probably not helpful for people who actually have this diagnosis. So this is another thing to kind of keep in mind as you're consuming information on social media about diagnosis. Going viral versus education. As I said at the start of this video, information and education about mental health are always a positive. That's what is at the heart of this channel. I want you to know more. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel like you've got this, you understand this. And when you go to seek therapy, when you start to try to manage your own mental health, it's coming from a place where you understand what's happening, where you feel empowered to ask questions and advocate for yourself. A pitfall here, though, is that sometimes some mental health professionals might feel a little bit too kind of drawn in or seduced by wanting to go viral. And they might use certain scare tactics, triggering tactics to get you to listen, to get something to just kind of be out there and be popular and be seen, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with wanting to grow and wanting to gain that profile out there that you're good at what you do. We would all want that. But the problem with that is that it oversimplifies some things and sometimes just leaves you scared that something might be going on for you with no explanation, with no education, and sometimes even with a big piece of that puzzle missing. So it's important for you to ask yourself, if you're experiencing some anxiety and some fear about a piece of information that you get, ask yourself, could it be that I'm missing some part of information here? And what was the purpose of this content that was posted? Was it really to try to educate me, or could this really just be something that they wanted to go viral? And again, sometimes it's made into like this statement and then it's just kind of left out there, or pieces of education and information are missing. And this is connected to the first point, which is it's good if it serves as a basis for questions for you, for continued search for information. That's helpful. But if it stops there and it just makes you feel scared, then there's probably a missing piece there, and that won't really be helpful for you in the end. Who is providing you with this information? Something to keep in mind as you are consuming this information is also asking yourself, who is talking to me? Is it someone who has the training, who has the experience, who understands what they're talking about? Now, I'm not saying that getting a degree makes you better than anyone. I understand that access to higher education is a privilege, and not everyone gets that. That doesn't make us better than anyone else just because we went to grad school. What I mean by this is, a licensed therapist, someone like me, for example, completed 6 years of education. That means that I took 6 years of understanding psychological terms, the history of psychology, the types of therapists that are out there, the types of a diagnosis. We get training with actual patients when we are still in grad school. Then we have to take a law and ethics exam. We have to complete 3,000 hours of training after we graduate. Then we can take the clinical exam. So there's so much information that we have to understand, so much information that we have to learn. And so that information is what makes us qualified to help you with your mental health, because we receive this information and we've spent years understanding it, learning it, and putting it into practice. That is important because we do that with a sense of responsibility, understanding that what we say, you're going to hold to a high regard. You're going to say, okay, this person is trained, so they probably know what they're talking about. but not everyone on social media that's talking about mental health is a licensed professional or is a mental health professional, or maybe is missing some information and education here. How much have they actually spent in training themselves and understanding things and practicing things? Ask yourself those questions when you're consuming things from people. Now, life experience is great, but having experienced something doesn't mean that you are now qualified to teach about it or to support people through it. The job of a therapist isn't to teach you how I do my life, but instead to teach you and to help you learn how you can best listen to how you want to live your life. What is going to make you happy? What experiences, choices are going to be good for you, are going to feel good for you? Because whether or not we share the same identity, if you are also a Latina immigrant who grew up in California and low SES, the first gen or half gen, which is what I am, even if you have all of those same experiences, it doesn't mean that my choices are going to fit yours. We might still want different things. We might still want different relationships, and that's okay, because my job isn't to teach you how to live my life, but instead, again, help you feel confident in living yours in a way that is authentic. So ask yourself, who is giving me this information? Again, like I've said previously in this video, there's so much about this that should be held as just the basis. Great, get the information, get the education, get the vocabulary, good, but it's just the first step. There's also some questions to ask yourself here, like who's giving me this information? Does this apply to me? Are they taking into consideration my various identities and experiences? And most of the time the answer might be no, because there's no time to. I can't get to know you because this is a YouTube channel and I'm never going to have the opportunity to sit with you in a room. But this might be a good place for you to kind of say, okay, this is good information. Let me see what else other people have to say. Let me ask some questions about this information that I received. And ultimately, if you would really like someone to sit with you in a room, get to know you, understand your experiences, and help you through your mental health, reach out to a mental health professional. Seek out help, because that is the best way to get that personalized, professional help that you might need. Mental health education and information at the hands of the people is at the heart of this YouTube channel. That's what it's all about. I love that there is that information out there, that you're sitting here today. But again, there's so many things that go kind of untouched or not talked about because of the limits of the medium itself. Like I mentioned, I can't really know who you are. I don't know your history or your experience, but it's important for us to take that into account, to understand that, and to start asking questions for ourselves about the people that are giving us that information, and even that information itself. Remember, it's not malicious. People aren't trying to hurt us, but instead trying to ask ourselves, where is this information coming from, and how does this person's experience paint the information that they're giving? As I alluded to earlier, the kind of therapist that I am and the kind of therapist that I do and that my practice does and my group practice does is that we take into account cultural identity, race, immigration status, gender identity, because all of this stuff, we believe, plays a role in your mental health, how you see mental health in the first place, and what you've been told and taught about mental health. So learning how to hold yourself accountable while also being self-compassionate is something that we teach at my group practice. But that is what's painting the information that I give you. That's the place that I'm coming from in all of the videos. But it doesn't mean that you have to agree with it or that other people agree with that. And that's the point. I might not be for everyone, and the place that I'm coming from might not be for everyone, and that's okay. Diversifying our sources of information is key. I do the same. I learn from other therapists, from other organizations, even people who are not mental health professionals, because as I said earlier, being a mental health professional doesn't make me better than anyone. There's still a lot that I have to learn. I don't know everything, and that's the point. So I hope that today's video was a really good start to helping you start to pay attention to some of the nuance that goes into mental health conversations that You're not going to get all the information that is particularly applicable to you in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, or even the 20 minutes that we've spent together today. So again, I hope it's a good start and it gets you going and motivated to learn more and to ask some very crucial questions about the information that you are consuming online. Thank you so much for watching, and before you leave, please give this video some love in any way that feels authentic to you. Every like, comment, subscription, and share helps spread the word about free mental health information and education, which is what we're all about. And of course, your viewership is highly appreciated. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Remember, as always, I'm cheering for you.